Wine looked at Jungkook, who was getting ready to go to his office. But she stopped him midway, and he looked at her as he asked, "What do you want?" Wine. Can you... Jungkook. Talk fast. I don't have time for this. Wine. Nothing. She looked down and moved away, making a way for him to walk. Wine spoke. I wanted to ask him to come home early today, but he didn't even have time to listen to me. How will he even come home earlier than usual? Jungkook. What is it? Wine. Why do you never have time for me? Why do you still treat me like a maid? Yes, I was your maid, but now I'm your wife. Can't you treat me a little better than before? Wine said as a tear fell from her eye. Jungkook. Listen, I only married you because my son likes you. I never saw him that happy other than when he's with you. I can do anything for him, let alone this mere marriage. It means nothing to me. So don't expect me to treat you better. Jungkook. You might be a mother for my son, but you're still a maid for me, he said and walked past her. Wine. So this marriage means nothing to you. I mean nothing to you. She looked up, but he was already gone before listening to her. Wine splashed water on her face and looked at herself in the mirror. Her tears mixed with the water. She cursed her fate, but she knew there was nothing else she could do. This is her life now. She wiped her face with the towel and went outside the washroom. Jimin immediately hugged Wine when she came outside. Wine smiled, looking at him. He was the only reason for her happiness now, even though she feels empty from inside. Wine. Jimin, you already came from school? Jimin. Yes. Driver uncle took me home early, saying that the guests are arriving, so I have to be home early. Jimin. Mom, what guests are coming? Wine. Your favorite uncles, Jin and Taehyung. Jimin. Really? Yay! Jimin cheered and hugged Wine once again. Wine. You go take a shower now, like a good boy. I have to make preparations for the guests. Jimin. No, please, you stay with me. It's only been a week that you became my mom, but you never give me time. You're always busy. Jimin looked down while making a pout. Wine picked him up in her arms. Wine. Okay then, let's play your favorite game first, and then we both will do our chores. Jimin cheered and kissed Wine on the cheek. Jimin. You're the best mom. Wine. But then you promise you will be a good boy and do everything I say. Jimin nodded in excitement. After an hour, Jungkook entered inside the mansion with his assistant. After a few steps inside, Jungkook punched his assistant on the face and held his collar. Jungkook. I told you I couldn't afford any mistakes in this mission. How could you be so careless? Assistant. I'm really sorry. It was all my fault. I'm so sorry, he said while his legs were shivering and he couldn't meet eyes with Jungkook. Jungkook threw his assistant's collar and took a glass from the table. He angrily threw it on the floor, making it break into pieces. Jungkook. I will deal with this myself. You guys are worthless, he said and left from there to his bedroom in anger. But he stopped when he saw Wine. He stopped at the door of the room when he saw Wine and Jimin giggling while playing with each other. His fists unclenched and his anger started fading away. He didn't realize, but he was smiling like a baby as he looked at them. He adored this sight. It felt like a little family of his was finally complete. Suddenly, Wine's eyes fell on Jungkook, and he immediately stopped smiling. Vine's smile faded away when he looked at Jungkook's hand, which was bleeding. She immediately left everything and went to Jungkook. Vine, you, your hand is bleeding, Vine said in panic, but Jungkook pulled his hand away, saying, I'm fine, don't stress it, he said and went towards Jimin to sit with him. But Vine couldn't see him like this. She took the first aid kit and sat beside him. Vine, how are you fine? It's bleeding so much, she said while holding his hand. Her eyes completely lost in his wound, and she looked like she was going to cry. She started rolling the bandage on his wound. Vine, why do you always make me worry? You know I can't. Tears started flowing from her eyes. Jimin felt bad for Vine, but he left from there, saying, I will go take a shower. Jungkook looked at her crying. The wound that didn't hurt him too much, but looking at it, she was hurt so much that she started crying. Jungkook, why are you crying? Vine, because you are hurt. Jungkook, I told you it doesn't hurt. Vine, but it hurts me, she shouted through her tears. Jungkook held her hand and leaned close to her as he said, Okay, I'm sorry. Don't cry. I won't come home like this from now on, he said, but she was still crying. Jungkook, I told you to stop crying. Vine, I want to, but I. Before she could complete, Jungkook crashed his lips upon hers. Vine's eyes widened and she froze at her place for some seconds. Jungkook only deepened the kiss, melting her tongue in his while biting her lips. He backed down after a few seconds. He sighed while looking at her. Jungkook, you finally stopped crying. He left from there, leaving you speechless. Vine's point of view. Did he do that to make me stop crying? Was he really not able to see me crying? So he feels the same as me. This was our first kiss. I couldn't stop blushing. My tears really stopped. The guests arrived and Vine came to greet them. Taehyung. Hey Vine, how are you? Tae said while hugging Vine, and Vine smiled in return. But Jungkook was seeing that, and his jaw clenched. Vine. I'm fine, how are you? She asked with a smile. Tae. I'm good. Jin. Hey Vine. He smiled and was going to hug Vine, but Jungkook came in between and hugged Jin. Jungkook. How are you, Jin Hyung? He asked with a smile. Jin hugged him back while laughing and said, I'm handsome. How are you? Jungkook gritted his teeth and took Vine's hand and sat on the sofa with her. They all started talking with each other and laughed. Jin and Tae were extremely funny. They made Vine laugh a lot and didn't let her feel like an outsider. Jin. But Vine, I really can't believe you married someone like Jungkook. I mean, why? Do you even love him? Jin asked in a mocking tone, and he wanted them to laugh. But Jungkook's smile disappeared, and she looked at Vine, thinking what she will say. But words were stuck in Vine's throat. She couldn't say anything. All of it was getting awkward as everything went silent suddenly. Suddenly, a man came to Taehyung and whispered something in his ear. He looked at Jin and shook his head. They both got serious, and Tae said to Jungkook, Sorry, Jungkook, but we will have to leave. You know how important this is. We will tell you the details in private. He looked at Vine and said, Sorry, Vine. Wine smiled and said, You guys and your work. Next time we meet, you will have to stay longer. Promise. They said, and they both left after bidding goodbyes. Jungkook was making Wine uncomfortable because he's been staring at her ever since Jin asked her if she likes Jungkook or not, and he was still staring at her. Wine was about to get up. Jungkook, you didn't answer him? Wine, what? Jungkook leaned closer to her. He asked you if you loved me or not. He leaned more closer. Their faces were so close to each other, and she half closed her eyes. Jungkook, what's your answer? He whispered in a deep voice, sending shivers into her spine. Wine. I. I'm not sure. Jungkook. Then let me make you sure about it, he said and kissed her once again. This was their second kiss on the same day. This time he kissed her very passionately to make her get sure of her feelings. But he realized she wasn't kissing him back. He deepened the kiss and made it rough, making her hurt. He bit her lips hardly without realizing. She flinched and backed away from him. Jungkook looked at her with confusing eyes, but Wine ran away in the bedroom, scared. Jungkook realized what he did and ran before her. Jungkook. Wine, I'm really sorry if I. Wine. Don't, Jungkook. Give me some time, please. Jungkook. What do you need time for, Wine? This is what you ever wanted, right? Jungkook. You wanted me to give you attention. Why are you running away now when I'm doing that? Wine looked at him with fluffy eyes. Wine. I don't want this. I don't see any love in your eyes for me. It feels like you're taking advantage of me by kissing me like that. I. I don't know if I want you anymore, Wine said and ran away from the bedroom. To be continued.